Hello, everybody. Welcome, new friends. Bill, good to be back in here with you. It's so great to see all these faces. Welcome, everyone. I am, I'm Nadia, recovered alcoholic, and we're in Bill's story still on page 13. That's what happens when you hang out with two people who are obsessed with this book. I mean, we just keep going and we just keep going, and then Bill bounces off, and we don't know where it's going to take us tonight, but I can tell you that I have got a lot of happy vibes and juices flowing through me. So I'm warning you, just warning you, put on your seatbelts. All right, so this is a little bit of background of where we are. Ebby has come to visit Bill, and Ebby is the miracle, and Ebby's talking, and he's full of beans, and he's full of happy vibes, and Bill is swimming between prejudice and alcoholic thinking and this truth that is in front of him that he can't deny. And he's now back in hospital. At the hospital, that's Town's Hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. I mean, Bill here was, he had suicidal thoughts. He'd lost a lot of weight. He wasn't eating. He was drinking morning, noon, and night, 24/7. And prior to this, the doctor had warned his wife that he needs to either get locked up or locked up in the asylum. But he was, locked up he was going to get, or with a toe tag. And it says here, I was separated from alcohol. We don't stop drinking, because if we did, I don't have to be on a Monday night. I could be death scrolling on Netflix. But I'm not. I'm here nose deep in a book. Sorry, I'm pet sitting, and we've got two dogs. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. There I humbly offered myself to God. Step 3. As I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, and that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins, step 4 and step 5, and I became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch, step 6 and step 7. I have not had a drink since. That's a miracle, and that's a promise. And Bill called God throughout his journey, he called God friend. And you know what's really, really beautiful is I came into this program. I had my hackles rose when you guys told me that this program was actually about God. It wasn't a stop drinking program. And then I shared it the last session last week, Monday, when we were together. I thought of somebody who was caring and who was protecting in my childhood days, and their face was the image of this newfound God. And you know what's really cool is because of you guys teaching me, I've now found a friend who sits next to me when I drive, who goes with me into the shopping centers. Before I go into a meeting, my hand is in my friend's hand. And when I pray, I'm not saying God, I'm saying friend. So I'm really trying to get around this relationship that I've got to have with God. It's not somebody dictating to me from the skies. It's a friend. It's someone that I can trust in, talk to, shout at, moan at, have my moods with. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. And I just love that. Bill called him friend as well. Bill, go for it.
Thank you, Nadia. You're always the voice of reason, and then there comes me. I want to say something because I've heard this lately. If God had the ability to separate me from alcohol, then no one would die from alcohol withdrawal. And I say that to say this, there's a statement and several people that I've heard lately, and great talkers in AA talk about, like, the heavens opened up, God came down, separated them from alcohol. And what they're talking about is he was detoxed medically. He was separated from alcohol in Towns Hospital. Then it says, there I humbly offered myself to God, which you read, as I then understood him to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. And then the steps began. And there's a lot of maybe false dependency or codependency going on, like a sponsor's going to take me through these steps. If I haven't surrendered to this power and invited him in unreservedly, you can sit there and we can go over a whole bunch of stuff that I might be able to write or come up with on my own accord. But if God's not taking me through these steps, the wrong entity is. And Bob Darrell brought this up. It's not my thought, but it's brilliant. It's the only place that is talked about in this book. He was to have his newfound friend take them away root and branch. I don't mind getting rid of the branches because that's what everyone can see, the ugliness, the what I poke you with, the manifestations of self out there. But he's asking God to take them away from the inside, root and branch. And he said, because if all we do is cut away the branches, guess what happens? They grow right back. If the root is taken out, the root of self, the root of the defect, the root of my need to be right, to be heard, to be noticed, to hurt you, to get even, to have revenge, to have the last word. If all I do is take them off the top, they're still underneath, and like anything else, they will grow back. So it's real important. And the reason I believe that his recovery was so spectacular is because the surrender was at depth and there was nowhere else for him to turn. And a lot, and also in the chapter working with others, since we're all big book compendiers and we're going to quote the book and live by the book, here's what the book tells me. If you're a prospect, when you come back to see him the second time, if he's interested in seeing you at all, or if you're going back to fetch your copy of the first edition big book that you know would have value 90 years from now, if you went back to get it, he tells you that he has read the book and prepared to go through with this process. Let him know you're available to A, make a decision, which is step 3, bear witness of that, and hear his story, which is step 5. These people that are making amends lists and telling people what to take off of this list and you shouldn't make, a sponsor's not going to govern me through this process. If he is, I'm relying upon a human resource to relieve me of what's blocking me from God. And I've just not seen that possible anywhere. But we say we're going to live by the book until we get to that portion, and then we change the rules and act like that's effective sponsorship. That's another form of dependency where I'm going to have someone rely on me and do things my way to get what I could never get for myself. It's almost like my life's unmanageable, so let me manage yours to see if it works.
Thank you. That's what we're doing here, right? We're helping each other carry this message. We're helping each other work with the prospects and the newcomers and those that keep coming back in. All right, page 13. 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph. My schoolmate visited me, Ebby. Ebby came back. And I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. Step 5. We made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment. Step 8. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong. Step 9. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I just want to highlight a little thing there. Never was I to be critical of them. You know, we've spoken about the idea that we are like other people. It'll come up now. And there is a solution. It has to be smashed that we are like other people. And in this book are a lot of instructions on who we cannot be, how we cannot show up in this world. And God's going to do that for us, right? And one of them is that we stop criticizing. We cease fighting anything, everybody, even alcohol. And in that includes, we are never to be critical of other people. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Step 10. You know what? It's God consciousness. You know what, guys? We have always had conscious contact. We've always had contact. Sorry, let me backpedal. We've always had contact. We just haven't been conscious. Are you awake? Like now we're awake to that. That's the whole deal. Now we're awake to that consciousness that's inside of us. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I often, when I saw that, I've seen that line a gazillion million times, and I just breeze over it because I'm like, I don't know what that means, right? And pride is a very big shortcoming of mine. Like, I would rather die than tell any of you that I don't know what's going on here. I would rather die before I put up my hand and say, Ali, you know what? I don't actually know what that is. Bill, what do you think that is? Summer, what is your take on? I'll just keep quiet and for years read that sentence and go, what the hell did that mean? But you know what is so awesome? I came to see this in my own life. The things that I believe to be true once, the way that I've responded to people once is no longer the case. So the way that I've always responded to the world, the beliefs that I've always had about the world, about let's say birthdays. Birthdays, you've got to buy presents and you've got to have cake and you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what everyone does. That's not important to me these days. In fact, the day that you and I found sobriety and we're still celebrating, like that's become important to me. Like that's uncommon sense to me, you know? So yeah, common sense will thus become uncommon sense. Things that used to make sense don't make sense to me anymore. They're not important to me anymore. I'm like in a whole upside down world now. Please nod and say yes, you know what I'm talking about. I love you guys. Thank you. I was to sit quietly when in doubt. Step 11. Asking prayer only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. Let's go see where else that instruction is. Where else is that instruction? Page 87, 1, 2, the second paragraph. Page 87, the second paragraph. It's the second last line. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. Addiction, alcoholism is literally one lifelong prayer to self. How am I going to get what I need when I get it? Who am I going to do what to get what I need? And what am I going to do when I don't get what I need? That was the constant prayer and meditation in my life. So we're careful not to pray for our souls. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure.
You know what Rob just posted up there from the 11th step. Never was I to pray for my own selfish ends. And the reason is, it's not because I don't want certain things and not because God's not in the granting business, but because I might mistake the role in the relationship, right? That he works for me, he serves me. And that's been the problem all of my life. Everything that I do is backwards. We had a gal on the meeting before this, I won't mention the name of it, but it was brilliant. She kept seeking her sponsor to solve her problem. And after 5 minutes of talking, we decided if she looked for someone to help, the problem would go away. Everything is flawed. I thought that God was out there. We come and find out that he's in here. I thought that my resentment said something about the people I resented, and what it did, it showed me a reflection of my heart. I thought that when I'm in trouble, I need help from someone who's gone before me, rather than look at those coming behind me and turn the direction. Common sense thus becomes uncommon sense. So when I'm seeking relief and think that it comes from you helping me, it ultimately comes from me helping someone else. We're just totally backwards. That's all it is.
I'm a backwards person, Bill. We're in the right room here, I think. All right. Page 13, the last paragraph. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all, capital A, capital L, all my problems, not just my drinking problem, not just my using problem, not just my sexing, gambling, eating, all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus willingness, honesty, and humility. Remember, we spoke about the essential requirements, what we need to bring to the table. The rest God takes care of. Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. And that is on page 568, the third paragraph. It's the appendix 2. It's a spiritual awakening appendix. And it says there, these are, oh no, why am I struggling to find? Sorry.
He's really
Right. Thank you.
indispensable.
Thank
Nadia
you.
brought up a good point here. It doesn't say you had to believe in God. And it's going to talk about it again in chapter 4. It said we had to stop doubting the power of God. And in this, it says belief in the power of God. It doesn't even say you had to believe in God here, but we have to believe in the power. And real quick, before we turn the page, you brought up our friend up in here. My newfound friend was going to take them away. And down here it says, my friend promised. All of a sudden, is he talking to God? No, because at the middle of the page, he uses a capital F for his new friend. So we know he's talking about that power, which is God. And down here, he's talking about his acquaintance. Very interesting.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for pointing that out. I was going to wait for we agnostics to do that, but yes, thank you. So now going forward, we're going to start taking notice of the letters that are capitalized, because now we're being invited, we're being invited to find some names for God, which are also going to help us define this relationship that we've got to have, because a lot of us, I am sure, have come into these rooms with the big guy in the sky with the white beard, the book of names, and he's filming us, the old movie cameras from the old days, and he's just dying to play that video to us when we rock up at the pearly gates. That is not the God that you've introduced me to. That's the God I came in here with. I do not know what other prejudices we're sitting with tonight, but that's what we're going to do. So start, I don't know, get a different color highlighter or a different color glitter pen and start circling those capital letters, because if you're stuck, you're going to have to go back there, because we need new experiences with God. We need new terms, new relationship. Maybe he's a mother one day, then it's a father, then it's a friend, then it's a creator, then he's this creative intelligence. I don't know. This book meets us where we're at. And Bill said something so important. Belief in the power. We are not helping you find God. We are not going to get into, is there a God or isn't there a God, because there's a great reality. We're not dispelling that. What we are trying to do with our newcomer or our prospect is, I want to direct your finger, your lazy human finger, and I want to help you just plug it into the God socket. And then you can solve all your problems, and you can do anything and go anywhere that alcoholic men and women cannot. Because that's one of the promises coming up.
Let me get religious here for a moment, because you brought something up and that was said. There's another book that I read where some people were challenging the master with some questions, figuring that if they duped him, they could then prove that he wasn't who he said he was. And they asked him about marriage in heaven, with a situation where a woman had been married by 5 different brothers because that was the law. None of them had given her a son. They all died before she was impregnated. So they said, which one will she be married to in heaven? And he looked at them and he basically called them idiots. But what he said is, you are in error, you are ignorant, for you do not know the scripture nor the power of God. You do not know the nature nor his power. And again, it says in the book, it says, that power which is God. So here it's belief in the power of God is sufficient. I don't have to believe in God. I just need to believe in the power. The power will reveal itself, and I will realize all along that it was God. And I'm so ignorant, I don't understand his ways or that way. All I do is what makes sense to me, which they've already told us needs to be reversed. I remember all my life my stepfather telling me, you have no common sense. I had uncommon sense, but that's not what they're talking about. What I had was obstinacy, an ability to know for sure what was wrong and keep doing it, even though it kept putting me at a disadvantage, because I figured one day if I tried hard enough, I could get it to work. We're not going to be able to bend spiritual principles to conform to what we want. What we come to realize is we cooperate, like you said, never criticize, and participate. And I like what you said. All I have to bring to the equation is the belief in the power. The willingness comes. The honesty is not my own. I'm pathologically dishonest. The book tells me that. I've lost the ability to differentiate true from false. The open-mindedness. Those are spiritual principles that come as a result of the surrender, not as something that I can will on my own accord. So, like I said, that may be a little heavier. They can extract this from the tape if they want, but they haven't done so yet. Why start now?
Well, one of our instructions, little on later, is be quick to see where religious people are right. There are helpful books also. Thanks, Bill. All right, bottom of page 83, we're going to go on over belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things with the essential requirements. Oh dear, this is sorry, I just have to say something. Maintain and discipline are like my 2 least favorite words in the whole universe, and they're in this book, and they highlight them right. I don't like maintaining anything. I don't like maintaining friendships. I don't like maintaining chores, routines, you name it, and I definitely don't like being disciplined. But apparently that's the deal. That is the new order of things, Nadia, is to establish and maintain. Simple, but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things. Again, here we go. All things to the Father of light. There's your capital letters. There's a nice name for you, for this higher power that we're asking you to build a relationship with, who presides over us all. I must turn in all things to the Father. You know what that sounds to me like? That sounds to me like a bit of step 6 and a bit of step 7 going on there. And you know what? I also just want to make a little note here that I came in here and I wanted to turn my alcoholism over to God. I wanted God to just stop the drinking and just stop the drama that was going with it, and the physical destruction and the family and. But you know, I'm very, very new in. I'm celebrating 4 years next month, and I have learned that I can give things like my anxiety, you know, my fear around money, my guilt that I hold on to because I'm a mom and I've been a mom in addiction and I've done some terrible things to two small human beings. I'm able, and those things plague me. They come back, they plague me, yes, and then they're back into some inventory. And yes, I do dive into, you know, working that much harder with shoulder to shoulder with a newcomer or a prospect, but I get to give all things to God. All things. I get to give my past, I get to give my future, I get to give my now to God. And I've come in and there's things like sugar. All of a sudden, I've got a sweet tooth. I never did. It says on page 100, apparently, you've got to keep chocolate handy. I love that. That tells me that there's a God who loves us, right? And now I get to give my sweet tooth to God as well. I just wanted to add that as a little caveat, a little read the fine, what the fine, small, what is it? The small writing, whatever it is. I can't remember. I've lost it.
Well, in the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth talks about our ideals must be grounded in a power greater than ourselves, with themselves, he says, if they are to recreate their lives. And when you said establish and maintain means to keep once it's established. And it talks about, I looked up the definition back then, and it's talking about to institute or to bring into existence. So if my way that I'm steeped in, that's in existence now, that's got to change. And then I need to build on that, because maintenance is not just to change the oil in the car. It talks about it in our book, right? It's growth. And a lot of us think that we call it the maintenance steps. They're not maintenance at all, because they use words like continue in step 10, improve in step 11, and practice in step 12. Those are all operative verbs. They are not, they're action words. They're not that I rest on my laurels or just rest at a maintenance level. But it's just interesting. If I'm to establish and maintain, I'm recreating something that is, and I don't want to say uncreated because that's not the right word, but it's non-existent before that point. What I'm steeped in is not working. So establish is a pretty big word, and it has several different meanings and synonyms. I'm surprised Rob didn't put, he needs to establish some new background things that he puts. We've had these all month.
I see Rob's rocking you in the chat. All right. Page 14, second paragraph. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals. This is a revolutionary and drastic program, guys. This is not sitting at home and just, you know, like doing this all day. This is a revolutionary experience and some drastic actions that need to be taken. But the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was oh, here we go into promises. Okay, we're reading some promises. Here we go. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. This little paragraph is referred to, I've heard in a couple of book studies that I've been to, as that moment of clarity. That moment of clarity that we have where we are like, yes, I know. I now just know. I don't doubt that there's something out there. And these lines are also, besides being jam-packed with promises, this is also Bill's description of a spiritual experience. Doesn't have to be yours, but it's Bill's description of his spiritual experience. For a moment, I was alarmed. and called my friend, the doctor, Dr. Silkworth. So he calls Dr. Silkworth, who in Dr. Silkworth's book hasn't seen Bill again, and Bill is like, well, sorry, he's just been to the hospital. That's right, he's been to the hospital. He's sure this man's dead, like he's on his way out. And Bill phones him, and he phones him, and he's like, I just want to make sure that I'm sane. Like, I'm literally experiencing God. There was a rush of wind, and I felt the light, and like I'm feeling calm and I'm feeling peaceful. Am I okay? Like, is this the delirium tremens? Has it taken my brain? I would imagine that's how the conversation went. He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, something has happened to you. I don't understand, but you'd better hang on to it. And Bill did. He hung on to it till the day he died in 1971. Anything is better than the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have had such experiences, and he knows that they are real. Because after this, Bill went back to his hospital, carried this message, came out with those guys, and they went back in and carried the message. And Dr. Silkworth got to see many, many miracles. He got to see many men have these experiences. And he knows that they're real. And while I lay in hospital, the thought came, this is like, okay, you go, because I'm gonna get excited here with this miracle that we're about to talk
Let me see if I can give you something a little more to get excited about. It was brought to my attention when we take time out of this equation, and I see how now I've had that experience in my own life. That once the spiritual awakening occurs, it did not have to be Rob, like him standing there on that bed facing. In his story, he's brilliant the way he writes it. He says he stares into the abyss. He's having this mental dialogue inside of his head. He said, Ebby's a crackpot. He went back and forth. He said, I'm drinking myself to death. Should I try what Ebby says? Ebby's crazy, he said, but Ebby's sober, and I'm not. And he said, then he had a vision of this abyss, as if he stared into the face of hell. And he said the abyss yawned as if to swallow him up. And then he says, with no faith or hope, I cried out, if there be a God, let him show himself. And all of a sudden, this experience took place. I didn't have the experience in the abyss of drunkenness. But what happened is, at about 10 or 11 months sober, after I was surrendered by abstinence and I begged God, I'll do anything, I took some actions. And one day I had an experience that was so extraordinary. I wept and I said, God, I can't wait to meet you face to face. All my fears fell away. I wasn't afraid of, you guys know my mom's in a place right now, dying one day at a time. I wasn't afraid of her going. I wasn't afraid of anything bad happening that could hurt me. In fact, I realized that what I said was, if you're ready for me, I'm ready to go now unless you need me here. That happened in a non-time manner, but that was my experience, just like Bill. And the problem is, I think we sell ourselves on the fact that if it didn't happen that way, that it would never happen, and I'll always be right. So the reality is, what effort am I willing to do, to go to seek this power? And it will be his position to disclose himself to me. We'll always find what we're looking for. I can settle with a God who just helps me to get by and not drink a day at a time and go to meetings and be somewhat helpful, relying upon an experience that I had 5 years ago. Or I can continue to seek and seek. And me and Nadia talked about it. There's a powerful line when we get to pages 84 through 88. In step 10, it says, we've entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding, I believe, of that world and effectiveness in that world, in this realm as well. But in the transition period, it says we have begun to develop. We've just begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further. And it dawned on me, they're talking about going further into the realm of the spirit. The further I go, the more God there is, the less self there is, the more of those, what I call hallucinatory experiences, because they're not normal. I don't have them all the time, but once I do, I want them. And wouldn't you know that even though I experience that glory, I let some idiot come along and take it away from me by forming a judgment, getting a resentment, and deciding how I'm going to get even with them. I'm right back out of the world of the spirit. And guess what? The only one who opened the door and let myself out was me. If I could stay in the presence of God all the time for that experience, I would, because it's what I was looking for in the bottle and the needle and the pipe and the straw. I finally get what I'm looking for and I let go of it. That's because I'm human and I'm selfish and self-centered, and that seemed to be the theme of my life. So it's not, as it says in step 11, which you, since we went there, were there. I'm not going to be inspired all the time. I want to be, but I'm not going to be. And it's not because inspiration isn't available. It's because for 60 years I've been steeped in self. And for a brief moment, I've been affected, infected, whatever affected by this power, which is God. If I begin to spend more time with Him in that atmosphere, in that realm, I'm going to have that experience more and more. And then it's as we come to rely upon it. Isn't that amazing? I walk out and just know everything's going to be okay. It's going to part the sea, Nadia, because I'm coming through.
Bill, you know what? His presence was blotted out by worldly clamors. They're going to clamor and clamor and clamor, and you're possessed by that spirit, and you are, and it'll just, it comes and it goes. I love that. Thank you. All right. So the doctor says, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're having an amazing experience. Bill comes and so we've lost a lot of, we know a God who is no limit to time, no limit to space. And it actually describes it in We Agnostics. Or I think we've gone past it. I can't remember. I've lost time now. That's okay. All right, back to where we're at. Page, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. If this does not tell you, yes.
Get excited. So let's get excited.
Okay, let's get excited. Here we are. Remember, I said to you tonight, you got to put on your seatbelt, okay? Because if this is not a freaking miracle, if this does not tell you that there's a God, then I'm sorry, then I'm in the room of wrong, then I'm in the wrong room here. Listen here. Page 14. 1, 2, 3, 4. What is our problem? Our problem is selfishness, self-centeredness, right? Not drinking, not using. So if I am sitting in a room of the epicenter of selfishness, look what happens. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came to that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given to me. Perhaps I could help some of them. Huh? And they in turn could work with others. There's this guy who's been riddled, like Bill said, seeped in self since he can remember. And he's had this experience. And what does he want to do? He wants to help others. He wants to help others, help others. I mean, come on, people. That's a massive miracle, promise. This is a radical program. I mean, that is a change. We are reborn. We are new creatures. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. Now listen to this. This is a big warning. Okay, for any of you new in, any of you first time going through this work, if you got a warning highlighter, use that color now, because listen to this. And I'm not kidding you, because I know out of desperate experience that this is the truth. Okay, in this program, not doing what Bill's saying here, I die. And the problem is I don't have, I don't have the courage to kill myself, and I definitely know alcohol's not my solution anymore, because it's gone. The desire is gone. So listen here. If an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he would not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Now, I don't know who's in here tonight who wouldn't mind dying. So maybe that's not really going to scare you. But if you're sitting here tonight and you are flying high with me and you've experienced this amazing, if you are not doing 12-step work, you're in an 11-step program and it's not going to be long. I don't know how long you are, but you're maybe a month away from taking that drink. I don't wish it on you, but this is the thing. This is appallingly true for us alcoholics. We are not like other people. We don't get to live like other people. We have to carry this message. We have to carry this message.
I'm about to get kicked out of AA, Nadia, for good and for all, only to be welcome back at my next meeting. As I said, and I'll put this out there, I ordered another 200 of those books today, Rob. The price went down. There's no 230. Forgive me for lying, because at 200 I had to pay postage. I get a whole box for free if I just up the order. 230 of them. They're $2.21.3 a piece, shipped with no charge. There's a reason. There is a solution. Chapter 2. We're not there yet, Nadia, but I want you to realize what was lost in the book that we're reading right now, the second edition on. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know 100 men who were once just as hopeless as Bill. It doesn't say thousands, and it doesn't say nearly all. Listen to what it says, Rob. All have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. In the first edition, how personal was it to know that there were, it would be like saying there's 15 of us here today. Bill and Nadia knew 13 other people just as hopeless as them. All have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. But because AA became such a compendium, I like that word, the name of our little platform here, because of such a big aggregate of people coming in, not desperate, not at the end of the road, not doing what was to be done. They had to change the narrative to fit the fellowship rather than get the fellowship to alter their stance to fit the book. 100, they were talking about how personal, 100 hopeless people. And later on it says, right there before the grace of God, there would have been thousands of more convincing demonstrations. It also says in there would be 100 more, would have drank themselves to death that we would have known for sure because we've met them. And it wasn't quite 100, but that's a real number. But all of a sudden, they're saying nearly all have recovered. They're telling us, guess what? They solved the drink problem. And I think everyone that makes it into this atmosphere, if they put down the drink and can get past the point where the alcohol's in their system, I don't know medically what that is. If they're in a position of abstinence, they have all solved the drink problem. Now we've got to deal with the spiritual malady, which is, like you said, the consumption with self. That's the dilemma. And guess what? Only God can do that. It even says it in our instructions for step 3. We had to have God's help. Medicine, detox, psychiatry, jails, all those venues can separate us from booze. But only God can keep us separated. That's, I think, where I was starting at the beginning of it when I said, hold on. If God separated us and it was him alone, no one would ever die from withdrawal from alcohol, but it'll kill you if you're so dependent on alcohol that you may need medical or even weaning off. But God can keep us separated. That's the only thing that for the hopeless alcoholic that's going to work for the establish and maintenance of the separation.
There's those words again. You know, Bill, you've paid 50 cents less than what the big book cost originally. It was $3 originally. Just a little tidbit for those that are taking notes. All right. Page 15, the last sentence of that first paragraph. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. Now, that's a promise and a warning. It's one of those promise, warning, weird things that Bill does. So here he goes. Now he's off. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate, for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, calling your sponsor, going to a meeting, meditating, guided meditation, staring at a candle, calling another fellow, when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. Here's the name of our group. It is a design for living that works in rough going. So here's the deal, guys. Whoever is here with me tonight, who's facing a trial of some sort, a court case, all right, who's going through a low spot, somebody passing in your life or somebody who has passed, or where it's rough going, you're still sleeping on somebody's couch, or you don't have a car of your own, you don't know when your kids are coming back to you, you don't know if they're coming back to you. We get to survive these things. Here it is, it's half a page. We get to survive certain trials and low spots. We have a design for living in rough going that works. We beg of you. These are promises. This is real deal. This is like, you can stamp this on your heart. There's no, this is the truth. I know it is for me. I'll give you a quick story about trials and low spots. I came into this program in 2020 and moved back to my hometown to be with my little boy who had been taken away from me in my relapse. And I came back to the town, and within a month I was told that they were leaving the continent. I live on a continent of Africa, and I was told that they're going to the continent of Europe. So very far away. There's a big giant ocean between us, okay? And with that came a custody case, and I had certain trials. I had certain trials. I was in and out of courtrooms, which are pretty scary. But you know what? There were a lot of things that happened during that time. It was a whole year. It was a lot of files being served to me by sheriff of the court and scary looking legal people. I had AAs phoning me and praying for me. I was lifted up when I went to those courtrooms. I promise you, I'm not lying to you. There were days when I went into those courtrooms that I actually felt lifted up by prayer. I knew that it was your prayers covering me. And I got free help. I got free legal help. I mean, to get legal help in high court in South Africa, astronomical amounts. I was gifted free legal assistance right through to the end. The court case was in my favor at the end. My son is still not with me, but I'm still remaining his mother. I got to see the power of God at work, and I had no say or there was no way I could have contributed to the outcome of that court case. No ways. Because I couldn't get into the files. I couldn't manipulate the files. I couldn't change the evidence. I couldn't talk to the judges behind the scenes and do my little sweet little cutesy girly thing with them to try and manipulate. I could do nothing. I just had to pray and believe and believe and believe and keep coming back to these rooms and keep listening to you guys. And I had to listen to you guys, and I had to believe. and I survived those certain trials. It's given me the most incredible foundation.
$3.50 was what it came out with. Not to correct you, although I love to do it, I'm not doing it out of defect.
You do.
Because I remembered, I thought it was $3.50. There was only one appendix in the first edition. And it was how to order the book, The Alcoholic Foundation is what it was called then. And the history tells us when they changed the name. But Nadia, notice here that I have 3 third editions that it may never have been used. They've never been marked in. The one that was printed in 1983, so it's 40 years old or a little better than that, has $6 as the price. The one this is a third edition. Until the fourth came out, they were printing them. This one does not have the circle and the triangle in it, because once we gave up our fight for the emblem or symbol or whatever they call that thing, some people, whatever they call it, mystic. It doesn't have that in there. But even so, the change in the book, and that the only appendix that was in there has been taken out of the third and fourth edition. Now they tell us how to get in touch with AA, but it never talked about Works Publishing Company owning the book or how to order it. But it was just interesting how many printings came out and how many changed. But the price in 83, which would have been 44 years later from the first edition coming out, had only gone up $2.50. And yet and still, in 1983 or 2001, some alcoholics weren't willing to pay $6 for a book that will change their life. They'd rather rely on some podium poop that they hear at a meeting, or worse than that, that someone said they think they remember hearing 30 years ago at a meeting. Isn't it crazy? To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. It's italicized. It's the first italics in the book in the foreword to the first edition. But guess what? Let me see what you think.
My sponsor always says to me, like, where do you hide the answer for an alcoholic? You put it in the book in front of him on the table. All right, Rob, we're gonna call it quits there at that paragraph. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.